Mritam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Ajnulambita bhujo kanagavadato sankirtanai kapitolo kamalaya tatto Vishwambaro dvijavaro yugadharmapalo Vande jagatyakaro karunamrotaro Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sodhito Gorai Pushpabandho Chitro Sandokamo Vandeham Shri Ramakrishna Abhaya Sharano Sato Sukado Paramananda Sundaro Suvalapayo Shri Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Rapta Kanchan Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishwahanusute Devi Namami Guri Hariye Shri Guru Vaishnava Guru Parampara Ki Jai Bhakti Vinod Parivar Ki Jai Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita Ki Jai Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Gaur Premanand Dindover. Is it okay? So nice to be with you all. I was told this, but I was just taken a little by surprise upon entering the hall here. I was expecting to see Sadhguru Gaur, but he's not here. Instead, a bunch of tattvas here. Reminds me, some years ago, I was invited by my godbrother Karnamrita to come to this place, which was in a village that had been very inappropriately, I would say, named Prabhupada Village, because it had none of the harmony that Prabhupada brought to a community. A lot of discord there, and no real philosophical center, if you will, which is the way to bring about harmony. I was, they were building a temple there, and it was pretty well along, but I was not allowed to go to the temple, because I was from another sangha. In fact, one of the fellows there was a godbrother of mine. He stuffed every mailbox in the community before it came with a letter saying why nobody should hear from me and so forth. So, very sectarian. So, meanwhile, I was not allowed to go to the temple, and they were holding some program with some people going to the temple. But the deity for the temple, the altar was not finished, so the deity was brought just before I got there to Karnamrita's house. So this is, it sounds charming and kind of cute, but it's actually right out of Chaitanya Charitamrita. These are real events. I repeated it, the logic of it, the common sense of it, to some persons who were inimical when I had the opportunity, but they didn't believe, if you will, that there had to be some other circumstances that had resulted in that, rather than the fact that the deities got up off the altar and decided to come and reside in a place where a sadhu would actually be speaking the Gaudiya Siddhanta. So there are nice stories like this in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. It just helps us to appreciate that if we want to, we can. We are, and we can realize that as much as we make our Sodom the center of our life, we're living in an extension of Chaitanya Lila. That's what it means to be connected to such a guru parampara, as the illustrious parampara, as we refer to it, Bhakti Vinod Parivar Ki Jai. But I'm reminded of it because the last couple of years at our retreat here, I was graciously invited to, there's a temple up the road here not far, and leading served Panchatattva. And the Devi who's Dasi, who's I kind of think running the temple, the main Pujari invited us. We had a very nice gathering there, and I was allowed to, invited to say something. But this year I was also invited by her, and I'd like to thank her for inviting me. But the authorities said that if you invite him here, then you can no longer have any service to the Panchatattva. So she's very attached to the Sampradaya, to the Panchatattva. So she apologetically informed Amarasana that I would not be allowed to attend this year, but the Panchatattva have come here. Krishna and family. Panchatattva ki jai. So we're blessed. Sadhguru Gaur, of course, is a beautiful deity too. That's a deity that Prabhupada and Sharinganity have been taking care of for years. And I'm reminded of him in the context of reflecting on where I chose to speak from. I really did not prepare in the lectures. I usually don't, but I give a little attention at least. But I just thought I would read from the Chaitanya Charitamrita and what comes to mind from that and comment on it. And I was doing this in Chile, where my godbrother Bhakti Kavi to Nanda Maharaj had invited me. We had some very nice discussions. And beginning, this was a couple months back, and we actually picked up where I left off from my lectures in Madhavan. I had been lecturing there on the Bhagavatam, 10th skanda of the Bhagavatam, and we came to an end of a particular section, a beautiful chapter of the virtues of the Yajnapatis, the wives of the Brahmins. Very, very, very beautiful chapter. And from there we then segued into Chaitanya Charitamrita. And so I've been following that a bit, and the focus in the readings has been the Madhya Lila. Madhya Lila means the middle Lila, the Adi Lila, the Madhya Lila, and the Antya Lila. And as I've stressed and emphasized in the past, and it's worth repeating, the Madhya Lila is really the center of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. I look at it from a couple of different angles of vision, and one of them is the fact that Krishna's Kaviraj deferred so much to Vrindavan Thakur, who celebrated text, the Chaitanya Bhagavat, was really fairly widely circulated and greatly appreciated at the time. It was much more extensive than the work of Marigupta. I think Kavi Karnapur's work must have come out after that. And so it was a real go-to book about the life and Leela and the precepts Srimad Mahaprabhu for all the devotees in his absence, because Vrindavan Das was like just at the cusp. He laments in his text repeatedly that he did not have the opportunity to have the darshan of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. These are moments in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that are to be underscored when the author reveals his feelings really come out. It might be trying to keep in, but he cannot. I love the section where he speaks about his Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nimai Pandit on the bank of the Ganga with his associates discussing grammar and so forth, and how he tries to share with us what, in his estimation, that must have been like. And he says, he could not be compared to Brihaspati, the guru of the Devas, because Brihaspati is particular to the, or I would say partial to the Devas. There's the Devas and the demons, he's partial. But this Nimai Pandit is impartial. His love, the love that he has to give, the love that he embodies, he gives to anyone and everyone. And he goes on, I think he compares him. He says maybe we could compare that scene to the moon rising, but the moon has spots, and this Gaur Chandra is spotless, golden throughout. Right? I think he gives another example. I can't remember what. A few of them like this. Then he says, but there's one thing that comes to mind that perhaps we could that would do justice if we were to compare him to that setting to this scene. And he cites, of course, the scene from the Bhagavad Purana where Krishna is assembled on the bank of the Jamuna with his friends having a picnic lunch, and then he longs that he could take birth in the next life for such savor. So, point being that he has comparatively, his emphasis in the book is the Adi Lila, and the Adi Lila this is Navadvip. Navadvip is not the center of the Madhya Lila. The center of the Madhya Lila is Jagannath Puri, of course, and it's meant, that center is meant to take us, that Madhya Lila center is meant to take us to the center of the center, if you will, which is the Navadvip Lila. So because the Navadvip Lila is more developed in Chaitanya Bhagavad, there are more details that even Krishna says, that has been spoken about written about at some length by Vrindavan Das. I'll just mention it here, and I'll try to add any couple of things I might not have been mentioned, or other details that I heard about. And its focus again is the Madhya Lila. There are other ways in which we could consider his deference to Vrindavan Das, but I'm saying it's a very real deference. It's not just officially, he's senior, I should pay my respect to him, and I'm going to write a better book now. And many people feel that Chaitanya Charitamrita is more rich, and it is, theologically speaking, philosophically speaking, and in terms of showing the way, which of course is what the Madhya Lila is about. I often refer to the Madhya Lila as the public life of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Having taken sannyas, he becomes a public figure. And taking sannyas, accepting the sannyas order is the beginning of this Madhya Lila. And how he conducted himself in the public is very instructive, obviously, to all of us, right? And he did so in such a way that it naturally drew him into an unavoidable private life that we find in the Antya Lila. And what can we teach about the Antya Lila? There are some teachings there, but the teachings that are very useful to sadhakas, practitioners, throughout, internationally, as it is today, that are found in the Madhya Lila. Teachings to Rupa Goswami, the Sanatana Siksha, the conversions of Prakasananda Saraswati, and liberation of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. This is, of course, the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's side of the Gaur Nityananda equation. Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahodito Vodalai Pushpavanite Chitro Sambho Tamundo. They came together, right? Like it said in Bhagavatam, Krishna's tu Bhagavan Sayam, right? After all, a number of the asankhya, uncountable numbers of faces of God have been described in brief, and the conclusion of the second is, but Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swami, but Krishna is Swami Bhagavan. But just prior to that, a couple of verses, of course, the Krishna Balaram avatar have been described, mentioned. They come together, right? So Murray, Gaur, and Nityananda, they are really an inseparable pair. And especially this is the case in Chaitanya Lila. In Krishna Lila, Balaram is a little bit restrained. He cannot speak out and speak of even visibly assist in the romantic affairs of Krishna, given the nature of the Lila. He's the elder brother, and that will cause some reverence to come in the heart of the Gopikas in his presence, and he is supposed to be looking after the behavior of his younger brother. That has been pressed upon him, Vatsalya, imprinted upon him practically by Yashoda Mai. You are the older brother, Kaji. You have to take care of him. I refer to him as the Maryada Purusha in Krishna's life. But as I said before, if Krishna eats dirt, well, he'll say no. His friends will accuse him. He'll say he didn't when his mother asked, but she'll ask Balaram, did he eat dirt? Yes, he did. So he's going to tell on him, right? That is, he's been pressed with that task. Caused some friction between them a little bit there, but he's omniscient. He knows everything about Krishna's romantic life. He's extended himself to be the bedstead, to be the canopy overhead, and so on and so forth, right? As Ananta sage. He knows everything about it. Wherever Krishna goes, in all of his avatars, there's a Lakshmi. It's said in love, three is a crowd. But there's always room for Nityananda Prabhu, for Ananta Sage, for Balaram to be there, right? In a form that's suitable for the circumstance to serve and assist. But as Balaram himself, he cannot directly participate. But as the Maryada Purusha in his life, he's not reporting on this. But we know he approves. He approves. We see that in particular in the Bhagavad, when Krishna gives his permission and commissions Balaram to return to Vrindavan and bring a message to the inhabitants there. And of course, the center of that whole 65th chapter of the 10th canto is Balaram meeting with Krishna's gopis and representing him and showing some sympathy, some anumodam for the dramatic plight of the gopis. He has his own gopis. That's 2 verses for that at the end of the chapter. That's the whole big topic. I got into that topic recently with a devotee. I'll tell it to you maybe another time. Maybe it'll come up. I don't think I should go there. We'll get too far straight from the main course here. We're trying to chart or trying to traverse. So Krishna. So anyway, It is the Gaur and Nityananda together. Krishnadas or Vrindavan says, I want to serve them forever. And he's saying here in the form of Krishna and Balaram as well, Vrindavan, right? So, and so Krishnadas Kaviraj refers to him regularly, repeatedly. And this is one of the reasons that the Adi Leela showcases the intimate pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as they appear in the Prakat Leela. And that Navadvip Leela, that's where we want to enter. In the house of Srivastava, where he has hosted the Kirtan of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And the way is shown, as I was saying, through the Madhya Leela of Chaitanya Charitamrita, with the taking of sannyas on the part of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which is so overwhelmingly emotionally disconcerting for the inhabitants of Navadvip, for the associates there, for the friends who come up here as we begin this chapter. This is chapter he's going to go to South India. He's leaving again. He's come to Puri. Now he's going with some associates. He's going to go to South India. But his accepting of the sannyas order, this was how disconcerting it was to them, shows up when he himself expresses in a way that would be ordinarily inappropriate for a sannyasi, how disconcerting it was to him when he came to his senses, so to speak, and realized what he had done. That he had accepted sannyas, he had left home, walked out in the middle of the night, in the wee hours of the morning, and such he stood like a frozen, like a painted picture, stunned as he walked out. And of course, in due course, he ended up by Nityananda Prabhu's arrangement, who's really been against this from the start. He's the first person who was confided in by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I think I will take sannyas. From the very start, he rejected this. He opposed this. After he took sannyas, he wanted to go to Vrindavan. He tricked him and brought him back to Shantipur and sent Chandrasekhar to bring all the devotees there, talk him out of it. After he'd already accepted the sannyas order, when the situation, awkward as it was negotiated by Sachimata, then Sachinanda, this is perhaps the most dear name of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to all of us. The way he was loved by his mother, we can say, from an ordinary point of view, is why he could be so loving himself. We're all troubled to be loving because of things like our upbringing. Sometimes has not been like Sachi brought up her son. She negotiated then what to do. My son has taken sannyas, religious people. If you give that up, they will think ill of him, and I cannot live with that. But I cannot live without him either, and to all of his friends here. At that time, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, what have I done? Why can't I leave all of you? He put himself in the hands of his mother, as a sannyasi, to resolve the situation. And mother knows best, so, as they say, it's an English saying. I must say that in Polish, and Bulgarian, and German, and other languages as well. And her solution was that to let him go to Jagannath Puri, which is like another room in the same house where Nadi is, because there's commerce between the two, and there's the pilgrimage back and forth. So news of him will be coming. We'll hear about him, and this way he'll be in a holy place at the same time. So then he went, of course, along the way. Nityananda Prabhu again showed his objection to the whole sannyas by breaking his danda, throwing it into what became the Dandabanga river. Name changed after that. Its name changed ever since. It's a beautiful, beautiful lila. We discussed it earlier, but in other earlier sessions. But here again, he will show his, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu decides to go. So then again, he will speak out and show his resistance. It's interesting to see that because the sannyasa of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is dear to us because through that he's come to us, right? And he's shown us the way. And there's no one in Gaur Leela who is more preoccupied with bringing others in than Nityananda Prabhu. He's the big canvasser, right? His successor, you could say, Virabhadra, famous, brought in thousands of Buddhists, I think it was, and they thought he was fulfilling the prophecy of, what is it? Maybe one of Lochandas Thakur's texts, some Purana, I don't know, that in Kali Yuga, what is it to say that they've this will go to other towns and villages, surrounding areas. He brought them in. We think of Prabhupada, fits that, and it's true also. But the point is, Nityananda Prabhupada, like him, was very preoccupied with the wide and broad outreach, right? Not at the cost of the depth and inner pursuit. Indeed, it was very central to, look at the boat on which Prabhupada came across the Atlantic to share the teachings, and how he's feeling in the prayer that he wrote, that Agni asked me, please let me sing that and he will explain it. We've explained it many times, but we'll go through it again as per his request, Prabhupada's poem. He didn't write it for public consumption. He wrote it for just to express it. It's his prayer. It's a prayer he wrote to Krishna to give me the power to do the bidding of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And first half of the prayer is such an example of Sharinganity. And as much as that's in place, as Bhaktisiddhanta used to like to say, first deserve, and that means surrender, then desire. The second half of the poem is filled with his longing, lalasa, for his ideal, to enter the cow-herding leaders of Christian involvement. This is, I'm pointing out the depth, his depth was driving the breadth of his campaign. Krishna Shakti Vine Nahi. Without Krishna Shakti, without that manifestation of Swarup Shakti, to that extent, one can be successful in propagating the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Without that, we will not be successful in any real sense. And Prabhupada was successful in a real sense. And here are all the evidence of that. And that campaign, the breadth of that campaign, like Nityananda Prabhu's campaign, it's driven by its depth. The breadth of Bhakti Vinod Parivar. It is the celebrated Parivar that is taken Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings all over the world, right? It has the power to do things like model the temple in Mayapur that Prabhupada wanted to make for Krishna, for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, like a 7th, 8th world wonder. His idea was that people would come from all over the world in Mayapur. Modeled after the Capitol in Washington, D.C. that he happened to see on one morning walk. He saw the Capitol building, and he thought, okay, this is the capital of the United States. And the United States is the most influential country in the world with its dollar and everything. And so, so we model the temple after that. Some might think, what kind of temple is that? That's not an Indian temple. That's not a Gaudiya temple, right? We could do things like that, right? But it follows. If we look back, we can see that, as I often said, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his movement is deep and broad at the same time. Deep and broad at the same time. Look no further than Rupa Goswami's Radha Govinda Mandir, an architectural wonder that is a blend of Mughal architecture and Hindu architecture, the two conflicting, on the surface, religious sects. Mughals were sometimes raiding Vrindavan. They even raided the temple there, tried to destroy it and so forth. So he was trying to, took the liberty, right, to bring out the universality of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teaching, the liberty, and had the ability to do so, to do so without straying from the center and the depth. These two things go together. The breadth, the ability to speak about it in a broad way effectively, is dependent upon the extent to which we're actually deeply connected to what Gaudiya Vaishnavism is really about, in an experiential sense. This is not a head thing where you just think. Do it like this, we'll check the people like this, I'll say it like that, collect information here and there. Could anyone possibly make a case, for example, that Prabhupada didn't love Krishna? It's like very silly. In some ways, he was not as scholarly in many ways as other authors, writers, and so forth. Action speaks louder than word. His love, his guru nishta. This is the basis of his campaign, right? In his letter, his poem to Krishna. My Gurudev wants me to preach, wants me to do this, so give me the power. And it wasn't even an order of Bhakti Siddhanta, it was a suggestion. It would be good if you preach in English. Prabhupada used to say repeatedly, my Gurudev ordered me to preach in English. So he petitioned Krishna in a very thoughtful, insightful way. I'd love to go into it on one of these nights, one of these days. And we shouldn't have any doubt that Krishna gave him the power, which he asked for to do it, right? He gave him the power of Nityanandaram, the Avesh, to make a broad campaign. But if we look carefully, as I say, at the second half of the prayer, we can see it's not separated from the core. He's deeply connected with the core, his ambition, his ideal, inner life. And it would come out from time to time. It would come out in the Krishna Balaram Mandir. What a thing that was for ISKCON, for Prabhupada. You just can't imagine what that meant to Prabhupada. He began his campaign in Vrindavan, really. He had nothing. That's where, and that's where the real wealth lies, right? He went there to reap, to draw upon the wealth of Vrindavan. There he took sannyas from Keshav Maharaj, started his Back to Godhead magazine, and so forth. And to have gone then to other parts, this was his Rag Bhakti. His Rag Bhakti was not really studying Ujjval Nilamani. There might be different reasons for that, but in other texts, he was reading whatever he could find in a tea shop in Delhi when he went to pick up his magazine that was printed. And he took it to the tea shop to sell it to gentlemen who were discussing politics about the new country, right? The budding possibility of a new country. India. And there we would find like a Christian tract from the Jehovah's Witnesses. And they would learn how they're thinking. They didn't have the internet or Google or what is that thing called? Chat? Or you just like I ask him questions every now and then. It's good. So this is what he studied. Like some Indian boy who wanted to go to America, but his motive was entirely different, right? He came to the Americas and he was not distracted for a moment. And it was just fascinating in and of itself for a person of that upbringing to come at that time to New York. He wrote back, I think, to Narayan Maharaj. He was asking him to send him a Mridanga and other things. And one of the letters he said, this place is like unbelievable. There's so many lights on at night, it's like daytime. And everybody has a driver. No, nobody has a driver. Because in India, only a very rich person would have a car and they'd have a driver. Everybody has a car and nobody has a driver. And the lights are on all night long. I mean, it's cute, but it's like, you know, imagine he was trying to figure it all out where he was like came to another planet, right? And there was a lot to be distracted by. After I took sannyas as a young man at 25 years old, I shortly thereafter I was with Prabhupada in, maybe it was 1976, a year later. I think I accepted sannyas from him. He graciously bestowed that order upon me in 1975 in Vrindavan with the opening of the Krishna Balaram temple. Again, this is his feeling coming out to put Krishna Balaram on the center and central altar and so forth. And I was meeting with him in New York. I was alone with him in his room. At that time, we had purchased what he called a skyscraper. Skyscraper? He called it a sky. I think he had another name for it. Skyscraper. He called it a skyscraper. It's an 11-story building in Manhattan. You know, comparatively, it was a small building, but I stayed. First year I came to Mayapur at his invitation, and in the straw hut where Prabhupada used to stay. It's a nice story. Him staying in the straw hut during the rainy season in Mayapur and relishing that. He came once to Hawaii, Ashram Maharaj told me, and they had a new farm on one of the islands. And Prabhupada went to see it, and it was very nice. They had practically nothing there. Prabhupada said, "You don't need anything. The climate is good. There are mangoes growing, there are bananas growing. Build a straw hut, live here, chant Hare Krishna, be happy." You know, many of us don't know that kind of side of Prabhupada, right? So I'll do something, bring people in, and so on. So anyway, Krishna Balaram Temple, but what was it? Skyscraper. So he said to me, I'm sitting with Prabhupada alone in his room. He was in the 11th floor. We had an elevator to go up, and his room was nice on the 11th floor. So he's sitting there, and he says to me, "Have you seen the ladies of New York?" You know, I'm 26 years old, and I just took sannyas a year ago, and I'm thinking, "Now, Prabhupada, why are you asking me that? You know, are you testing me, or what?" You know, I'm trying to think, what's on his mind? And then, without giving me a chance to answer, he said, "They're so beautiful." He said, and just see, he said, all these skyscrapers going up like this, all these men building them because of them. Those girls, they're making the whole city go up like this. He said, "This is Vishnu Maya." And he was just like fascinated by it, you know, charmed by it. This is how a very powerful manifestation of the material energy in Kali Yuga, one of the epicenters of materialism, consumerism, the whole, you know, affair. And this is how he reacted to it. He couldn't be distracted. And if he looked at you for 10 seconds, you know how long those 10 seconds would be? And he would see right into your soul. And if you were practicing properly, he would nod his head like that. And he would feel him say, "Build it behind your eyes, carry it in your heart. I know it's enough to be on your way." He couldn't, and so many yogis came in that time, and there's so many stories about the New York women, and California, Los Angeles women, and they didn't have the same experience. Right? They didn't see the world as Prabhupada did, externally. And he built the Krishna Balaram temple. What a thing this was for him. He had come across the ocean, humbly. How would he do this? He prayed to Krishna. That's how he do it. And he got the power to do it, and they all are. And when he returned to Vrindavan, built the Krishna Balaram temple, it was like coming home, and all this was part of building the temple was the acceptance of his disciples by the Pandits, the Brahmins, the other Vaishnavas. We weren't accepted when Rishikeshananda was a godbrother of mine, stayed in India, and Prabhupada was in the United States, and he took Shiksha from Bon Maharaj. He said that some of the, not Bon Maharaj, but some of the devotees in the temple, they would be careful not to be touched by his shadow. Because he was an Westerner. They were touched by his shadow, they'd go and bathe in the Jamuna. And Prabhupada was doing our laundry, cooking for us, and eating what we cooked without any hesitation, and so forth. Very extraordinary. And the Krishna Balaram temple then, part of that was a huge event, because Ramanreti was just out in the forest. If you go there today, you won't realize it, but it was just out in the forest, out of the loop, really. It was given to him a piece of land there. Appropriately so. Ramanreti. He used to say, here, Krishna and Balaram, they do their cow herding here, in these playful sands along the bank of the Jamuna, the old Jamuna bank, river bank. And so it was a huge triumph for him, and practically speaking, at that time, all the devotees were, and the temple was accepted, and Brahmins came to speak, and politicians came to speak. It was like a 7-day affair. So, and he could, if you were looking, you could see, he could express his heart there. From where he got all the power from his friend Krishna, right? Do the work of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, the work of Radharani's camp, Gauravani Pracharine. And it's true what Govinda Maharaj said when he wrote the poem for prayer, Pranam, Paschacha Pracharine. He liked that so much. Prabhupada, you don't mind, I'm just talking so many things. Prabhupada had asked Puja Pachita Maharaj to write a pranam for him. Puja Pachita Maharaj was very known for his Sanskrit compositions. I mentioned this some devotees earlier. We had a conversation earlier today, but I'll repeat it. He wrote a poem about Bhakti Vinod Thakur that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, Sridhar Maharaj has captured Bhakti Vinod in that prayer. He's present in the prayer. He wrote a poem about Bhaktisiddhanta that all of his peers, all of his godbrothers said, Bhaktisiddhanta is there. And they put it on the walls in their temples. They sung it every day. Pranamami Sada Prabhupada. Every day. That's quite a compliment. Imagine if I wrote a poem about Prabhupada. I have written a few, but and all of my godbrothers said, "Oh, this is he understands Prabhupada." It would be quite a testament, right? They did this with Sridhar Maharaj's poem. So he asked Sridhar Maharaj to write a pranam for me, but then he went all over the world, wrote his own pranam, and didn't wait, and so forth. Later, then Govinda Maharaj started. He remembered that, and some of us were there. I was there in the Math at the time, Chaitanya Saraswati Math, and he asked Sridhar Maharaj if he could write a pranam for Prabhupada, and Sridhar Maharaj would edit it because Prabhupada wanted that, and it should be done. And Prabhupada had already passed from the world. So he wrote it 4 poems, four pranam mantras, and Sridhar Maharaj edited them. But he really liked this line. Paschacha Prachatarani. Prabhupada written Paschacha Desha Tarani. Deliver the Western world, right? To deliver the Western world. But Govinda Maharaj lit up and he said, deliver the Western and the Eastern world. What he has done for India, Hinduism, for all of India, for the East, for Gaudiya Vaishnavism. How can we say enough? So that campaign, my point is, I mean, as much as we all know, it's very powerful, and you can never tire of telling telling the story. It's a chapter in Chaitanya Lila, the extension of Chaitanya Lila in the Chaitanya Sampradaya that's will be heralded, for forever, for eternity, and it's driven the power of that to be as accommodating as he was, to be as humble as he was, to be able, which is a characteristic now, Bhaktivinoda Parivar, to deal with the breadth of the movement in a way that's not at the cost of the depth, that comes out of the depth. It can only really effectively come out of having that depth, to be that anchored to the core of what Gaudiya Vaishnavism is, the heart connection to that ideal. See, he had it all worked out. He was grounded in Raman Riti, in the playful sands of Braj. Herding cows with Krishna Balaram. He was grounded in this, anchored to this. And out of that comes all Vaishnavavata. And therefore successful. And to be able to take and say things like he did on one occasion. He called them, what did he call them? He called them some kind of dolls.
Good luck dolls.
All the time. Yeah.
Good luck dolls.
What do you call them?
Good luck.
Good luck dolls. Good luck dolls. This is the founders of our sampradaya, Gaur Nityananda, the Samasti gurus, the gurus that presided with all the lineages, right? And he said, we can take little deities of Gaur Nityananda, we'll call them good luck dolls. And you give them to people and tell them, wave this incense at them and chant this mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, and all your desires will be fulfilled. And someone said, what kind of Gaudiya Siddhanta is that? What is he teaching? He had the ability to do that. Gaur-Nitai allowed that. It's like I was told, the very seed of it, where it comes from. The worship of Gaur Nityananda. Where's the worship of Gaur Nityananda? As the deities come from? It comes from Gauridas Pandit. Gauridas Pandit is the Subal Saka of Gaur Lila. Subal appearing as an associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Subal Saka. Gauridas Pandit, he could not bear the idea, after hosting Chaitanya Nityananda Prabhu, that they would leave. So Mahaprabhu looked at a neem tree and invested himself in Nityananda Prabhu in the tree and said, take from that tree and carve images of us, and we will reside in the images, and that way we'll stay here. So he did that. He had the images. Right? He's taking care of them. And he was very poor. And but he took care of them with every ounce of whatever energy and whatever economic strength he had to acquire foods and make nice meals and so. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu returned. He said, you labor so hard, making these royal feasts 3 times a day and so forth. And he said, in this avatar, it's not necessary to worship me like that. Just some simple vegetable and flower garland, that is sufficient. And Gauridas said, you can get that in anybody's house. And Nityananda and Gaur go into everybody's house. Gauridas Pandit said, you can, okay, let me say so, we'll go to anybody's house. In everybody's house. Gauridas Pandit, Jai. It become possible by and Prabhupada's coming in that, from that sector, right? From the Suvarna-Varnik sector, from Saptagram scepter, he said, by the time the British made Calcutta the capital, practically, I think he said 50% of Calcutta was made up of people from Saptagram, the Days and the what's the other name? two family names. Prabhupada's family name was Dev. Malik. Abhijit and Dev. So he had that power. One of the times, okay, if you say so. And of course, on so many altars around the world, they appeared, which is uncharacteristic of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's line. It's some feelings of Prabhupada. Pragmatic, but there's feelings behind that. So this the breadth, the wide campaign, the ability to accommodate other sentiments outside of the core sentiments of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Prabhupada would put in Bombay Sitaram, Hanuman, Lakshman on the altar. And some of the Gaudiya, what's this? This is not Gaudiya Vaishnava, Sitaram, of course, Radha Krishna there on another altar, and Purnatai on another altar. But this is the breadth. This is the prediction of Bhaktivinoda. Gaudiya Vaishnavism will bring all these other sampradayas together. Will give energy to all of them. It has. Give a lifeline to all of them. Introduce them to the world. Bring them into academia, and push out to the fringe Advaita Vedanta. Push it out to the fringe and let all these rich Vaishnava traditions have readership and study and participants. He made a bridge, right, that they could all walk across. They could all walk across the Atlantic Ocean and come. This is the prediction of Bhaktivinoda. It's happened. We have given Gaudiya Vaishnavas have given life to these other sampradayas in the modern world. And it's our parivar that's done this, and it's partly because of its ability to effectively pay attention to the breadth of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission. We're coming to the breadth here because he's going to go to South India. Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rakshama. We come to this. Yeah, Ram Bhakt is there. So many. In other words, what I'm saying is there are core sentiments that most of us are affected by, and that's why we're here. That's why we're attracted. It's we think of a samskara as something that is an impression that comes from outside, right? It comes from outside and has given made an impression upon you. But about the Ragatmika associates in Braj of Radha and Krishna, Krishna Chakravarti Thakur said they have anadi siddha samskars. It means it hasn't come out from outside, it's already there, it's inherent in them. And they're perfect. I think this is something to do with Bhaktivinoda's idea. There are some scars in all of us. They're not perfect. They need some further massaging through preaching, association, further impressions. But why you'll be attracted to one impression rather than another? Why will you be? Because it's been more heavily fostered on you? Are you a stone or a sponge or something? Anyway, that's a long other book, an argument, and it's a good one from our parivar. But the core ideals that we are attracted to for Gopi Bhav, for Sakya Bhav, that are fully represented in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu. Sent my book to the devotee in another mission, and she's a scholar, and asked if you would like to read it. It hasn't been published yet, Circle of Friends. If she would like to read it, and if she was moved by it, I said, and inspired by it, then maybe she would like to endorse it. I said, don't endorse it because I'm asking you, only endorse it if you really feel that it's valuable, that it helped you, or that you feel it would help others, something like that. Anybody that I send it to, I sent a few people, I made it clear to them, I don't want endorsement. In fact, one fellow who's a devotee, I've known him for years, he's a scholar too, and he wrote me back and he said, thanks for sending this, Maharaj. He said, I really only read literal translations of my own of core texts and so forth. But I'll touch through it and I can, get the gist of it and I can write something if you like. I said, no, don't do that. That's not what I like. I'm not interested in that. Don't do that. And we had some back and forth for a couple of weeks, different things, topics. I'm pretty artful, Well, I know something about him. I know something about his inner life. He doesn't know that I know, and I don't know how much he knows either. But I know. So I began to write down different things, and gradually, he said, I think I'm going to read that tonight, something like that, Right away, I wasn't focusing on that per se. And so then he read like one chapter. Then he wrote me back. He said, I know I want to read this whole thing, but I want to wait. I want to print it out because I can't do justice to it on the computer. I'm just old-fashioned. And when I get back to the United States, I want to print it out, and then I read the whole thing slowly, and then I want to converse with you further about it, so we can. So it was very nice, very, very gratifying to see that he could be moved by the text. So the lady from another mission also, she turned out to be very attracted to the text, very attracted to the text. Wrote some nice things, but she said, but I can't endorse it because in one chapter at the end on Baladev Tattva, you said things about Baladev Tattva that I think would be a problem for some devotees in our mission because they want to be gopis of Balaram. They want to be gopis of Balaram, and you've made it hard for them to be gopis of Balaram because you pointed out that the romantic life of Balaram is really not the center of his life at all. And if you want to please Balaram, you might want to know what really pleases him, what really makes him tick, what he's really about, which is what the Gaudiya Vaishnavas bring out about Balaram. There are other people who worship Balaram. There's a sector outside of the Gaudiya Vaishnavism. They're devotees, living at the Dauji Mandir on the other side of the Jamuna from Vrindavan. They think Balaram is the main one, and I doubt it. His character is better than Krishna's. Krishna's misbehaved, and Balaram is very well behaved most of the time. Comparatively, he's better behaved, and he's an older brother. So they have devotion for Balaram, lots of devotion, but they have a certain angle on him, and he's accepting that. And what the Gaudis have brought out is what really makes Balaram excited. That is his friendship with Krishna. That is his sacrifice. After all, I wrote in the book, and she said you supported us from every possible angle, but still, they will be discouraged by this. I said, really your task is to try to tell them what the tattva is so that their sentiments can be edited by the tattva to fall within the parameters of what we call rasa tattva so that they can experience something beyond their, imagination, if you will. And so I had some back and forth. It was very nice, and I was very humble about it, but at one point she said, well, I explained to her the breadth and the depth of the sampradaya. But she said, well, it means they're going to have to go outside of the sampradaya, because over there, for example, or in Garg, if you want to know how to become a gopi of Balaram, well, our Goswamis have not dealt with that topic. Our sampradaya, not interested in that. But if you go to the Garga Samhita, you will find, oh, here's how to become a gopi of Balaram. You have to worship Ram, Revati, and it's all Maryada, it's all Vaidhi Marg, Bhakti, Aishwarya, so then you can go there. Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, the difference between Krishna and Balaram in terms of their gopis is the gopis' love for Balaram is Maryada, and Krishna's gopis' love is Madhurya, he says, reverential and sweet, the two. She said to me, well, some of the gopis of Krishna, they're reverential. I said, yes, but they're all sweet. Their reverentialness, their how would you say, their submissiveness, their compliance. We're moving from the left to the right here. Chamdavali, we're in Radha's camp, Tunga Vidya. Oh, she's in Radha's camp, but she can't tolerate the man of Radha. And she gets upset with Krishna. That's not good for you. So yes, there's some reverence, compliance, some submissiveness. You won't find it in Radha in the same way. Rarely, but she's bringing out dear Lalita Krishna, the Krishna who's controlled by his lovers. Jai Radhe, Jai Radhe. Let's go to your Vaishnavism. And when Bhaktisiddhanta says one is sweet, one is Maryada, Maryada means proper behavior. That's not Parakiya. Parakiya is improper behavior. Right? It's not wrong. Either one of them. Swakiya is not married, it's not wrong, but there's a difference. So it was like she couldn't get anywhere with me, although I said, look, I'm trying to be very generous here and accommodating. Here, see this footnote. It says, the Bauji Mandir over here. I've given reference to Garga Samhita. I'm not discouraging it. It's kind of odd, I said, peculiar, especially from a group that prides itself in being so closely following Prabhupada, who never said anything about this, had no interest in becoming a gopi of Balaram and so forth. It was a little jab, but at this point she appreciated it. And then I said, no, see, she said, well, you're saying they have to go outside of the Sampradaya. I said, no, the Sampradaya is deep and it's broad. Why do you think Prabhupada put Sita Ram deities in the altar in Bombay? Because there were Ram Bhaktas there. And he knows if they worship Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and they become Gaur Bhaktas in the context of pursuing their Ram Bhakti, they're going to get Ram Bhakti so much more readily, so much more expediently, because they're going to be taking advantage of the Yuga Avatar, the Nam Dharma, chanting the Maha Mantra. They're going to worship Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as God, and through him easily get Ram Bhakti. And they can go to get something from the Ramanuja Sampradaya. I told the story before. There was a godbrother, not a godbrother of mine, I don't think, but a devotee of ISKCON, member of ISKCON. And he got frustrated with ISKCON, and for different reasons he left. And so he went, and eventually he joined the Ramanuja Sampradaya, and he got initiated in the Ramanuja Sampradaya, and so forth. So he's going to the what's it called? The Sri Rangam, the capital, right, of Ramanuja Sampradaya. And he wanted to go in. They said, no, only Hindus can come in. He said, no, I'm Hindu. I tilak, and I got a letter, this is my initiation. But no, only Hindus can come in. No. And so he kept pushing back, and then he got so frustrated, he said, oh, Hare Krishna, just without thinking. They said, oh, Hare Krishna, come on. Hare Krishna, come on. Sriman Mahaprabhu. So I said, be a Ram Bhakta. In the context of being a Gaur Bhakta, you want to be a Gopi of Balaram, go for it. Okay, if that, but here's the way to do it. The core ideas are there from Gaur and Nityananda. We're mostly attracted to the core idea, but some of us are coming Because we have some affinity, like Gorkeshava, Godbrother of mine, he's famous. His attraction to Ramanuja Sampradaya, but he's a Gaur Bhakta also. So it has breadth and it has depth, and who can effectively understand that and effectively uh, cater, if you will, like our Paribar does, to the breadth, be innovative in preaching. One can really do that effectively, like a Bhakti Vinod Thakur. I mean, this is a reformer of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. He said, as he had the vision of Panchatattva, doing some kirtan in Navadvip, he said, and I'm just a sweeper in front of the kirtan of Panchatattva. Panchatattva ki jai. And Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, just to mention his name, practically Prabhupada would you could see him try to hold back his tears. He could hardly talk about Bhakti Siddhanta. On the day of his appearance, he could hardly talk. There are some lectures, but I was there for some of them. And I know when Prabhupada could hardly talk. Who is Bhakti Siddhanta? I'm thinking, oh my God, because I know what I'm like before my Prabhupada. And Bhakti Siddhanta said, and I'm one straw in the broom of Bhakti Vinod. That's who I am on the line. Let him do with me as he likes. He knows what's best. He has the power to spread Gaurnam. This is Bhakti Vinod Paribar. My Prabhupada just say, this is Bhakti Vinod's movement. This characteristic of our movement. Look, we're all here because of this. To be able to effectively deal bring people in diverse situations and circumstances and bring them into the core, making adjustments externally. But some persons who pride themselves being deeply connected to Gaudiya Vaishnavism think it's some kind of a deviation. But actually, what's driving that is really being anchored to the core of what Gaudiya Vaishnavism is about. And of course, Krishnadas Kaviraj is anchored in that core, and here we're going to read about some of his Madhya Lila, the central focus of his text, which is the outreach of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I mean, he was innovative in his time. You have to realize, you think, well, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was strictly following Gaudiya Vaishnava. He was making it up, right? And he was very innovative. Who was his namacharya? Brahmahari Das, an outcast. Rup Sanatan, they were outcasts too from the Hindu society. They became the main Shastra gurus, founding acharyas for the whole sampradaya. So this all you find this in the Madhya Lila. You have to look and see. If you know a little bit, you can see he's innovating here. This is revolutionary. To bring people in, right? To adjust the details. Understand the difference between the detail and the principle. There are principles. And you cannot deviate from those principles and effectively spread Krishna consciousness. People may like to hear from you, but what they're going to get is not Krishna consciousness, and you will not either. You have to understand the principles, the difference between them and the details. Core principles, from which we derive the vitality, spiritual vitality, to be a sadhaka, in ongoing, happily, to have an effulgence. Susukam kartam madhyayam. And that shares with people. Share your bliss with them. It's contagious. Right? So Madhya Lila, and he's deferring to Vrindavan Das, who brought out the Adi Lila, where we want to enter, right? And of course, he writes his own Leela. The teachings that what can Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has become a private person. He can't talk. He can't teach. If we want to go there, and from there, enter into Navadvip, into the Kirtan Hall of Srivas Thakur, we have to understand Madhya Leela. So we're going to read a little bit from Madhya Leela, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and from beginning from his, now he's going to go south of the earth. He just, it's very traumatic. Again, he's leaving. So, I'm very happy to be with all of you and have the opportunity to talk about these subjects. I think you're interested in the subject matter and all is very compelling. And last time I was here, we were all sick. We didn't know if we would ever see one another again. Right? The world was falling apart, but here we are. Right? So we hope to get closer and closer. I have some plans to try to bring us closer more often. I'm sure they're going to cooperate with that. Help me and help yourselves. Are there any questions tonight? Briefly, what is the time?
5 to 7. 5 to 7.
What time do we start?
5:30.
So maybe we just stop for now. It's a good introduction for our program. We'll meet again tomorrow evening. Good talk, I think, and then in the morning, Kamali will be singing, and I'll come in the morning. Also, we'll read. I think I'll read. I published it on the internet, so maybe you've read it, but I think I'll read from my commentary on Navadvipastakam. Rupa Goswami will be fitting in our topic of discussion. Chaitanya Leela ki jai. Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Gaur Premanande. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kipasindhudeva Patitanam bhavaneva Shri Namaha. Anantakoti Vaishnavindra ki jai. Gaur Premanande. Jai.